Hey guys, so welcome to the first episode of my podcast. And this podcast has no title yet and no scheduled next episode. But I'm here to test the microphone that I purchased last week. So it's cute and it's pink. And I think I want to put a good use to it. Anyway, um, so for this episode, I want to talk about my 2025. And 2025 is the year that quietly repositioned me. And at the start of the year, my life looked stable for from the outside. Nothing looked broken, but I remember how I felt. I was tired. Not the obvious kind. Yung pagod na gumagana ka pa, present ka pa, dependable ka pa. Pero may constant tightness sa loob. And I kept telling myself, okay lang to, transition lang, rebuilding year lang. But what I didn't know then was that 2025 wasn't asking me to rebuild anything. It was asking me to notice how much I was carrying and why I felt like I had to carry it alone. And this is the story of how I realized that. The stories. Yeah, marami siyang story. All right, at the beginning of the year, I was holding a lot of roles. Not because anyone told me to. Actually, walang nag-demand. Parang automatic lang. Ako yung sasalo, ako yung mag-a-adjust, and ako yung mag-aayos. Because in my head, being capable meant being able to hold everything together. So I kept adding responsibility, more decisions, more pressure, mostly on myself. And I didn't realize I was already tired. So back in 2024, I resigned from my corporate job and started freelancing. So before the freelancing, bago ako maging business consultant, I had more than 10 years of stability. Funny enough, I felt like I had more control back then in my corporate era than I did in this new setup, new environment of freelancing. Because freelancing felt open, unstructured, parang ikaw lahat. So I compensated the only I compensated the only way I knew how. I took on multiple projects, different clients, different expectations, and I told myself I was being strategic. But honestly, I think I was trying to prove that I was still dependable. Na kaya ko pa, na hindi ako bibitaw. And being the person I was, you know, I always want to have contingency plan, plan B. Hindi pwedeng wala akong choice. So, that was the strategy na I thought would work for me. So, by the first quarter of 2025, my heart and my mind were already telling me to slow down. So, I made an intentional decision. I limited myself to two projects only for the rest of 2025. And for the first time, I chose sustainability over proving something. And this part about work matters because habang nangyayari po, we're also dealing with Riley School. So imagine the what made 2025 heavy wasn't one big event. It was the accumulation. Pagulan talaga ako sa pagiging feeling dependable. And I want to be clear here. No one was intentionally putting this weight on me. The truth is, I put that burden on myself. And this is where the inner child part comes in. And I learned this pattern early on. So I grew up watching my mom being this strong, independent woman, very strong, very independent. And she handled everything. She didn't ask for help, and she just did what needed to be done. And without realizing it, I absorbed that. Somewhere along the way, I learned that being safe meant being capable. Na para hindi ka maging pabigat, kailangan kaya mo lahat. So in my mind, being dependable meant being self-sufficient. Being strong meant not needing any. And I carried that belief into adulthood, into work, motherhood, and even in my leadership. So this year wasn't about people asking too much of me. It was about learning something. It was about unlearning something I learned as a child. That became very clear when things got hard with Riley's school. And it's one of the hardest parts of 2025. That has nothing to do with work. It's personal. And we struggled to keep him on his current school. And it's really hard to sit across from teachers and counselors and hear that your child might not be a fit, to hear him described as disruptive, not because he's doing something wrong, but because he can't sit still. He has ADHD, for God's sake. And to hear words like he might not belong, that other parents might complain about him, continuously standing up, that classmates are already asking what's wrong with him. Of course, as a parent, that hits deep. Um, Kasi hindi lang naman education ang ina-advocate mo. You're also protecting your child's sense of self. But one thing I'm really grateful for, I wasn't doing that alone. Dexter was there in every meeting, every conversation, every decision. And we processed everything together. And that mattered more than I can explain. And in ways I also didn't expect na hindi pala kailangan ako lang ang mamroblema na pwede palang ganito, na pwedeng dalawa kami. And we found doctors, we got recommendations, we advocated quietly, but firmly so Riley could continue school. And he's back in regular school. And although now, heading into 2026, we're deciding together whether to homeschool him for a while until he can regulate better and then bring him back when he's ready. And this time, it's one we're carrying together. Also, around the same time, may napansin ako kay Leon. Napansin ko kung gaano siya ka-independent. He started helping in ways we didn't expect, especially with Riley. So, minsan mas naiintindihan pa niya kung ano yung kailangan ng kapatid niya. Minsan siya yung nag-translate. He helps on calming him down and he adjusts to situations. And every time I see that, I'm honestly amazed. Kasi ang galing niya. Sobrang swerte namin sa kanya. He's such a good kid. And watching him show up for his brother, that healed something in me too. It reminded me that strength doesn't always look like carrying everything alone. Sometimes strength looks like connection, like showing up for each other. So, allowing myself to receive support also changed how I showed up in my relationship, and it changed how I made decisions. So, one of those was buying a piece of land in Alfonso. And we did it because we know we want a quieter life eventually, a slower life. in the countryside. And what mattered wasn't the purchase at all. What mattered was that I didn't decide alone. Because if I'm being honest, the old me would done this differently. Before I would make big purchases on my own, I wouldn't consult. I wouldn't share the cost. Not because I didn't trust my partner, but because I felt like involving him meant becoming a liability. Like I had to protect them from the burden. And this time I didn't do that. I We talked about it together. Um, we decided together and we shared the responsibility. And that was new for me and important. So around the same time, something else happened that softened me in a way I didn't expect. When This is when my mom paid for my college debt. Something shifted in me, you know. I didn't ask. I didn't expect it. We were in the topic, it came up and she offered. And in that moment, I felt like a child again. I felt secure, protected, taken care of. Parang bumalik yung pakiramdam na may isasalo sa'yo, may nagbabantay. And it's a big deal for me because since I was 18, sanay na ako na I am responsible for myself and I pay for my own needs. So I learned early on, I learned early how to stand on my own and how to move forward, how to survive. And it's no one's fault. I think that was just how I thought I needed to live because I didn't want to burden anyone, including my parents. So I carried things quietly. And that's why that moment meant so much. Because for a brief moment, I didn't have to be the strong one. I could just be their child. And that healed something in me that I didn't even know needed healing. Well, looking back, 2025 taught me a few important things. And for this first one, I want to thank Dexter for it because he made me realize that it's okay if we don't get everything all at once. And he reminded me that the most important thing is to be present at the moment, reminding me of health, of family, of time. And I also learned that strength isn't holding everything together. Strength is knowing what deserves my energy. And being dependable isn't the same as being alone. Because I would normally keep things to myself and just burden myself of it until I get to solve it. And now I'm learning not to do that. And I didn't end 2025 loud or no big promotions, no big salary increase or any of those that, I would normally celebrate when I was back in the corporate world. But I ended it steadier, more grounded, kinder to myself, especially to the parts of me that, learn to survive early. And I'm not entering 2026 with just goals. I'm entering it with conditions. And I'm building a life that doesn't require burnout to function because, I've already set conditions and terms and which protects me from the burnout. And I think that's how 2025 quietly repositioned me. And I'm in a better place right now, I would say. And that's something that I'm really grateful for. So that's it. Thank you for sitting with me in this story. If you're able to resonate, I'd like to hear it. And if there's any topic that you'd like me to talk about next podcast, put it in the comment section because I can't think of anything right now. So that would really help. All right. Okay. Have a happy new year. Bye.